Welcome to Ceci, the podcast where you see what others see.
Hi there. Good morning. So today, what are we talking about? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Ceci here. Is anyone there? Hi, my name is Ceci. I'm based in Berlin and I want to welcome you to Ceci, the podcast where you see what others see. In this season, we're talking about movement. And today, we'll talk about opera, music, singing and performing. And guess with whom we'll be talking to?
Our guest today is rising star mezzosoprano Marina Viotti, who at the early age of 8 discovered her passion for singing and embarked on a remarkable journey towards becoming one of the most acclaimed opera singers of her generation and one of the most sought-after artists who guests at the most renowned opera houses. Marina Viotti first studied flute, experimented with jazz, gospel and heavy metal, and earned a master's degree in philosophy and literature before beginning her vocal training with Heidi Brunner in Vienna, which she continued at the Lucerne Conservatory in the class of Brigitte Bali. She graduated with a soloist diploma and completed her training with bel canto studies with Raúl Jiménez. Marina Viotti's clear and powerful voice caresses softly with angelical sweetness, swaddled by seductive romanticism, captivating her audiences around the globe with temperament fitness. Her vocal range and versatility allow her to effortlessly navigate various operatic roles, from the dramatic to the lyrical, bringing each character to life with depth and emotional nuance. Whether at La Scala Milan as Maddalena in Rigoletto or in the Staatsoper Berlin under the baton of Daniel Barenboim as Dorabella, or as Rosina at the Liceu in Barcelona, as well as at the Bolshoi in Moscow, her performances are an explosion of technical excellence, musical sensitivity, and of remarkable presence on stage. In 2019, Viotti was recognised as Best Young Singer of the Year at the prestigious International Opera Awards in London. Other prizes include the third prize at the Concours de Genève, the International Bel Canto Prize at the Rossini Festival in Wildbad, and the Musicians' Prize at the International Competition of Macon. Beyond her talent and success as a performer, Marina is admired for her dedication to using her platform to make a positive impact in promoting the accessibility and relevance of classical music in contemporary society. Her belief in the transformative power of music fuels her desire to share her artistry and to connect with audiences on a deeper level.
Hello, Marina. I'm so happy to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Opera is about kings, gods, ancient heroes, and about everyday people dealing with everyday struggles. The world of men, as well as the world of gods, can be quite complicated and confusing. Marina, which kings, gods, or cyclopes have you met during your opera career that have helped you to understand and experience opera the way you do? Which encounters with goddess or vagabonds propel you to sing the way you sing?
That's a very good question. I have met a lot of people that became mentors and kind of kings and goddesses and queens that led me during this path that is not always easy. I think, for instance, of Raúl Jiménez, who is this teacher and this god of bel canto, because he's a very famous tenor that I saw since I am a kid on stage with my father conducting. And later on, I learned from him everything I know now about singing bel canto. And I think the way and the path of an opera singer is a lot about the luck of meeting those leaders, those kings and queens and gods and goddesses that will help you, the people that you admire, people who are your examples, and that will lead you on this way. And I have met a lot of them. I'm very lucky. And maybe also some cyclopes and that have put some obstacles on the way that I had to overcome. And those people are also very important.
You are undisputably talented, and your technique is also excellent. But there's something about the way you sound, the sweetness, the passion coming through your voice, that without exaggerating, one could say that it is heavenly. When you sing, Marina, what stories are you telling yourself? What images cross into your mind or into your heart? In these moments, what are you telling your audience?
Well, when I sing opera, I am a character. I'm part of a story. I'm part of a vision. And so I'm not Marina. I am, at the moment, for instance, Cenerentola, Cinderella. So I am this girl that has to clean the floor and will become a princess in this tale that we all know. So just before I enter the stage, I kind of imagine myself the whole backstory of a character, how she will walk, how she will react. Is she naive or strong or soft? And all this work, of course, will happen 2-3 weeks in advance with the stage director, because maybe he has another vision of that. But for sure, when I am on stage, I forget everything about myself, about me, and I am this character in this story, and I am delivering a text and an emotion. And so I kind of transcend the person I am and become this ambassador or this vector of kind of a higher purpose, or at least something that will reach people's hearts. And for that, you have to be very sincere in the character you are acting, singing, and imagining in your head.
Going inside your head again. Hungarian author, psychologist, and philosopher, whose name I hope I will be relatively pronouncing correctly, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, contributed with pioneering work to our understanding of happiness, creativity, human fulfillment, and the notion of flow. A psychological concept he first coined and used to describe a state of increased focus and immersion in activities such as art, play, and work. We will now hear renowned neurosurgeon Peter Vygotsky talk about the process of reaching this state of flow in the imaginary performing surgery.
The first time point when I came across the flow concept was when I was discussing with my friend David Langer from New York, from Lenox Hill. You might know him through the Netflix series. And he pointed out to me that book by this Hungarian philosopher who was talking about, or was writing about flow. And I learned that it's about learning, how you learn things. I mean, if you start as a beginner, you have no idea what you don't know. Then you realize that there are many things where you're not competent yet. Then in the next stage of learning, you are aware that you are becoming confident and competent in the different details, but you still have to think about the right movements and how to master the things. But if you are really close to perfection, and obviously you'll never be super perfect, but you are close to perfection, then you reach a state where you are suddenly functioning and you are doing the things from your hands, from your mind, and things suddenly happen without being consciousness or aware of it. So it's really automatic. And then things flow out of the body. You do the operation. Time is becoming a relevant issue. You are not nervous anymore. You're not afraid. And things just move along perfectly. And this is really what we understand in surgery when we talk about flow. And this is really the perfect situation, what we are aiming for. And I hope that every surgeon reaches that state on a regular basis, because this gives also the best results.
When fully concentrated using your skills, Marina, in your case, singing, have you ever experienced feeling this flow, meaning that every and each of your actions, movements, and thoughts become so natural and fluent that time just flies away and you feel free from any fear, fulfilled and immensely happy?
That's a very interesting comparison, the surgery and the singing through this flow. This state, yes, I have experienced it many times. I think singing is, I always say it's kind of a meditation. It brings you to a place of now, and it's also connecting yourself to your body, your breathing, and you have to be so aware of everything around you on stage, whether it is the conductor giving you indication, the orchestra colors, your colleagues, what's the movements you have to do. For 3 weeks or 1 month, we work like really precisely of which object I have to take on that time, which steps I do on the left. It's like a huge choreography of 3-4 hours that I have to learn, also the text, also the music. And the aim of those 3 weeks of work is that exactly on the day of the show, it's automatic, it's something unconscious that will allow me to have it like printed in my body. And I do it without thinking. And the singing as well, it becomes something very natural, very, yeah, there's really a flow in this. And I think it's the same for a ballet dancer. So when you don't have this flow is then when you didn't probably work enough in the repetition for me, and when you are nervous, exactly, because then you become conscious of every mistake you do, and then you don't deliver a good show normally.
Marina, this past summer, a friend of mine, a Spanish singer, told me a fantastic story. So he's in Verona practicing an aria with his teacher, and they both are singing together in synchrony. And there's a moment when they both reached a note that made the top of the trees vibrate. When I heard him, I automatically linked this experience to what Rabbi Rami Shapiro, author and professor of religious studies, told us during an interview about the breath of God, movement, and the universe. Let's hear.
It says in the Bible, in the very beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, that the Spirit of God is the breath of God. The Hebrew is mirakethet, hovers, vibrates over the surface of the deep. So like the earth is covered in water, and the breath of God is vibrating over the whole thing. So and then the vibration becomes the word, light, and then land, and all this stuff. The universe is the Word of God, and the Word of God is God's breath, and that's all vibration. So there's nothing solid in the universe. Everything is just dancing. Everything is vibration. So when you're moving, potentially, you're vibrating in tune with the vibration of the universe.
Thinking of singing as a universal language, I want to ask you, have you ever been able, let's say, hear or to feel this invisible language lying underneath and going through everything we see and breathe, this vibration with the universe while singing?
Yeah, I have actually an anecdote about that made me realize this truth. I was in Japan singing in a festival in the mountains of Hakuba, and I wanted to go to an onsen. It's this kind of bath, like a spa, but it's normally you're not allowed if you have tattoos because of the yakuzas, and I have tattoos. So they made an exception for me, and I went to this bath, and it's women are separated from men, and you have to be all naked. So it was a bit impressive because I was the only non-Japanese in this room. And there was a friend of mine, a violinist, who speaks both Japanese and French. And I saw that the old women from working in the rice fields who were there in this bath, they were very hostile to see me with tattoos in their environment. And so they asked, what am I doing here? And so she explained, I'm a singer, and they don't know about opera there. They have never heard an opera in those mountains. So she's this older woman, she was probably 70 something, and she said, let her sing something. I want to hear what she's doing. And it was not said in a nice way. And here I was naked with this woman in a bath, starting to sing out of the blue, Dalila, Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta voix. And those women, they don't have any idea of what I am singing about, of what is the music underneath normally. They just have my voice in this bath. And I saw them transform and becoming very, very moved. And this older one, she started to cry. And she gave me a hug. She was naked. And she came to me, she gave me a hug, and she said, that's the gift she will bring to her grave. And then I was, of course, it was a very touching moment, very strong. And I told them, like, for me, I realized that there is something that is a universal language about the voice itself, and probably something very ancestral and something maybe spiritual as well about a voice, because there's no way this person could be touched about the text or the music because she didn't have it. So that really opened my mind to a whole new world, I would say.
Marina, thank you very much for sharing this wonderful experience and anecdote. I think you moved us, well, at least me, to tears. Thank you. So let's talk about opera. One of the most complete ways to tell a story, as you were mentioning, is through music and singing, is opera. Because it's very complete. You were talking already about everything you have to take into account: the music, the drama, the dance, the choreography, the costumes, the orchestra, etc. So in this regards, and in regards of immense energy exchanges happening in opera, Kerem Hassan, chief conductor of the Tiroler Symphony Orchestra Innsbruck, left a wonderful question for you.
My question to you, Marina Viotti, is in operas, characters often transcend time, space, and even realms. How do you perceive the movement of the soul through these narratives, especially as a mezzo-soprano, often caught between the role of the heroine and the antagonist?
That's a very interesting question. It's actually true that as a mezzo, we are lucky to have the possibility of expression much bigger than a soprano, because we do bad girl, sexy girl, men, young men, witches, like Carmen, and at the same time Rosina in Barbiere, who's this ingenious young woman, and I don't know, Octavian in Rosenkavalier, who is the young night. So we have to explore so many souls, but also we have to explore in ourselves so many different sides. I had to explore my masculine side to be able to put it into a character that is a man, how I will walk, how I will sing. My movements are different, so many different things. And then if I am a very sexy woman, I am a bit shy with sometimes my body. So how am I gonna pretend I'm super confident on stage? And that taught me a lot about my own femininity and maybe also my own confidence. And then also now I'm doing Cenerentola is one of the first time I do a very naive and sweet character. And that is again something I have to find in me and to be able to bring it to this character. So I think this is also why opera has managed to survive all those centuries. First of all, because all those characters, they still reach us because it's human feelings, it's human figures, and it doesn't matter if it's a princess or not, because nowadays we can transform completely a production that was supposed to happen in the 17th century and is transposed today. So that's why it's so rich. And also the fact that we mezzos, we are usually secondary part between the heroine and the antagonist. We serve the story in a very short time. We are not always on stage, and we have to enter the soul of the character quicker and deeper and be able to create all this in a very short time, which is very different from having the main role where you develop your character in 3-4 hours. So that's another challenge, and that's also why it's so interesting.
Hadn't been for Prosper Mérimée novella Carmen, inspired by a short visit to Spain and the story he heard from a countess about a gypsy man from Malaga that killed her lover, Bizet would have never written the libretto of the opera of the same name. Likewise, without John Luther Long's Madame Butterfly, Puccini's opera Madame Butterfly could have not existed, at least the way we know it. And there is many other examples about this. Marina, you were talking before about this narrative and about this diversity in all of these characters in opera and the possibilities that opera brings us to become more closer to our human nature. And you also studied literature and philosophy. And I want to ask you, what impact does your love for literature and philosophy has had in your opera singing, and foremost regarding the characters you embody when performing?
It's actually helping me a lot. First of all, because I always put the text as a priority. You know, opera singers are divided usually in two teams. There's the team voice and there's the team text, which means sometimes you have a phrase that if you pronounce it properly, it will damage the beauty of the line, the beauty of the voice, because it's a E that you have to say in a high note and it doesn't sound so beautiful. So some singers will choose to change this E into a or something that is more round so that the voice stays beautiful. And there's the other team, which will sacrifice the beauty of the voice to make the text understandable. And I'm definitely on that second team, because I think it's more important that people understand what I'm talking about. And that's because I always had this passion and love for words and for also the whole history around the character, around, as you say, the history around Carmen. It makes you understand the character better, where it comes from. And sometimes it's also to my detriment, because I have this whole idea about a character, and then the stage director has a whole new idea about it. And so I have done all those research, and I have started to explore a certain idea of the character, and then I have to change everything because he completely wants to change the story or change the perspective on the character, which is also enriching. So also, I would say that philosophy and literature gave me a certain distance with a lot of things, like the choice of a career, who I am, what I want to be as an artist, and also not only as an opera singer, but in the recitals I do. And I think we will talk about it later, but having a meaning, an idea, and a message, and something for me is very important, not to be only an opera singer that serves the vision of a stage director and the conductor, but also has my own projects with a more personal vision, I would say.
Well, literature is certainly a door to a magnificent world, at least this world of letters, dancing letters. And there was a part of an interview to our former guest psychologist, Dr. Peter Lovett, fondly called Dr. Dance, where he talked about his relationship with words due to an undiagnosed dyslexia, which changed everything as he discovered the world of literature. And Misha, do you think we could play that clip?
The most amazing experience came when I first fell in love with a character in a book. And it was a book by Tolstoy. And there was a character in it called Kitty. And I loved Kitty. I wanted to see her on every page. And I kind of got tongue-tied when she was around. And I got jealous of her lover. And but falling in love with these characters changed the whole relationship I had with words, which is very similar to the relationship I have with dance and movement.
I know very little about opera, I have to confess, but I'm in total shadows about heavy metal. So I relate metal actually with pain, even to a cry for help, a sort of a transformative catharsis, if you will. When you were younger, you sang in a metal band for many years, and then you returned to classical music. And I could not help myself but notice that this happened in a time of grief and mourning. Marina, why metal music, and how did metal music help you reconcile with the world of classical music?
Actually, I started singing in a metal band a bit earlier than, because of course this tragedy happened with my father, who died when I was almost 19 years old. But I had started this metal band a bit earlier because I was always very curious about other communities, other type of music. And also I am a very energetic person, and I was playing the flute at that time. And that's not a very energetic instrument, let's say. And I was playing in an orchestra, and it was okay. It was interesting. But then I discovered the metal when I went to a concert, and there was a woman singing, and she was so incredible. It was Floor Jansen. Now she's the head singer of Nightwish, one of the biggest female voice metal band in the world. And she had this huge technique, the presence on stage, and she would like communicate with the audience and make them react, and they would sing along. And there was an energy, there was a synergy that was so strong. And I was like, wow. And there was metal instruments, so guitar, electric guitar, bass, and drums. But there was also a whole orchestra in the keyboards. So it was epic. And I thought, this is the best marriage. And I want to do that. And so I started to learn the bass guitar, and I was singing along. And then the guys of the band said, drop the bass and become the singer because you have a voice. And of course, I was imitating the opera divas I had heard all my childhood. And then my father died, and metal became my therapy for sure, because it is related to grief and violence in the music, maybe. But what people don't know is that it's actually the most kind, open-minded, and sweet people that are in this world. There's no drugs. There's a bit of beer, but it's kind of a family. And I needed that because we moved to another city where I knew nobody, and it was such a terrible time for me. And I had a family there. I met immediately in a metal bar, and then I could write my own text, scream them, because I was not only singing, I was also screaming, and be on tour and have all this anger canalized by this music, and also communicate with the audience and get a lot of love from them. So that was why I kept doing it until I was almost 25 years old. But there is always an admiration from from the metal world to the opera world. So it was never really disconnected, and it was quite natural for me to then go back to classical music when I felt ready.
Well, I'll never think about metal music again the way I did. Now I will
That's good.
really look into other things. It's wonderful. And Marina, Corelli was a giant that certainly moved the world of opera. And audiences like Corelli's were audiences that were thirsty for opera. I believe he even had standing ovations of 14 to 15 minutes. And talking about movement in that sense, the synergy between the artist and the audience is extremely important since one nourishes the other. Well, Chabela Vargas, a born Costa Rican Mexican singer, known for her rendition of Mexican rancheras and contribution to other popular Latin American music and muse to figures like Pedro Almodóvar, said once about entering the stage, "When I enter the stage, I feel frightened, but I encounter something or something encounters me. And before I finish the first song, I'm already on the other side, on the side of my audience." Entering the stage must be a unique experience each time it happens, Marina. What can you tell us about the synergy between you and your audience? What kind of energy is the one that draws the artist and its audience closer together?
In the opera, it's a very quiet audience. And that was for me at the beginning a bit weird, coming from the metal, which is everything but quiet. It's a bit strange because you enter in silence. And sometimes, if you do a comedy, like I do now in Rossini piece, people are laughing, and there is a bit more of a loud communion between you and the audience. But in general, you will understand what the public felt about you and the story at the very end. And that is sometimes making you feel a bit lonely on stage. But I would say that there is still a perception in this silence, a communion that is maybe more tacit, like it's not really something you could explain, but you can feel an emotion. You can feel a vibration as a singer sometimes during, I don't know, a long phrase that is very softly sang. And there is silent reaction. People are holding their breath. And usually then they start coughing, actually, because they were holding it too long. So that's those moments of magic of this communion. But there's another way for an opera singer to have a better communication with the audience, and that's the recital. And this is why I love recital. Basically, it's you, a piano, maybe some other instruments. You choose the program, you choose how you want to present it. And this is where I think I am at home, because then I can build my own stories. I always speak to the audience, which is not something very common in this world of classical music, but that's me. And I love that. And they react, they laugh, they think, they cry maybe, they answer. And I can't understand, actually, when you do a recital, that you would see those people come on stage, sing for an hour and a half, and leave without at least saying hello. That for me is almost impolite. So I will never change that part of my personality and how I see the communication with the audience. Then there is another vision of that the singer should be this kind of, not God, but like It has to be distant. It has to be untouchable. Well, that's might be true, but it's just not me.
Una voce poco fa qui nel cor mi risuonò.
Hi, we would love to hear your comments and learn about what you see. Share your input at www.ccpodcast.com and follow us on social media. Oh, I almost forgot. To accompany us in this season's journey, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And now let's continue with Ceci.
Well, for sure your presence can fill the stage of great opera houses. La Scala, Munich, or Berlin Staatsoper, der Bolshoi. But Marina, as we were mentioning, you also perform in these very intimate stages, where you also dance tango, besides singing opera, and you also sing jazz, gospels, chansons, metal, as we were hearing. And dear listener, we will hear an interpretation now of the Metallica flute with Marina Viotti, so that you really know what I'm talking about. What is this woman all about?
So close, no matter how far. Couldn't be much more from the heart. Forever trusting who we are, and nothing else matters. Never all.
Marina, let's talk now about these amazing performances. Not only between the synergy between the public or the audience and yourself as a singer, as we were just talking about, but also moving from one genre to the other. How do you switch graciously from acting to singing to interacting with the audience? Tell us about this crossover, about this sailing back and forth in these performances, as I've said, from one genre to the other.
Well, it's something that is, I would say, my specialty, because, as I said earlier, I was always very curious to meet different communities, to go to different concerts, from reggae to hip hop to electro to gothic, dark, new wave, whatever. I really listen to so many different kind of music all day long. I actually almost never listen to classical music at home. I do it already every day. And I think it enriches me a lot to explore those other genres, vocally, stylistically, and to think of how could we rearrange, I don't know, like for instance, a Metallica song for lute and tambour and flute, and then my voice. And it's very interesting for me because there is this mentality that classical music is like the higher art form, and then every other musics are a bit less quality somehow, or less good. And I think this is stupid. I think there should never be any box or any tag that something has to be a higher form or a more popular form. I think every music, it can be amazing, and you have just to do it with a lot of passion and with a lot of work and treat every kind of music in the same level. So because I love also vocally to be versatile, to explore different colors, I present those recitals that are very crossover. And at first it was a bit difficult because crossover has a bad reputation of being a patchwork and has no meaning and it's never well done and everything. So I had to really do it properly and to give it a meaning. So, for instance, I have this project that we just heard that is called Melancholia, and it's all about those big themes of the humankind, which is like death, time passing, the observation of the nature, the love, the disappointment, the passions, and everything. And it's putting in parallel some Renaissance music from John Dolan and some today's music. And we put it in a mirror, and then we rearrange each title. And at some point, it's like a meditation. It's a huge meditation of an hour about melancholia. And it doesn't matter if it is Renaissance or if it is rock or pop, because at the end, I just tell a story and I make you maybe reflect on something, and I reflect myself on all those subjects. So that's the purpose of music. It's to have an emotion, maybe make you feel, think, and grow, both me and the audience. So I only propose this kind of recitals. I'm absolutely unable to do a full Schubert recital. Like that's not where, it's not that it's not interesting, but it's not where I feel at ease, because I also love, as I said, to communicate with the audience and to try something different a bit. And there is now more and more demand of that, and I'm very happy about that. And there's a lot more to be done.
Well, you just opened the door for my next question, Marina, because I love to talk about jazz with you. Improvisation is not new. Improvisation traditions include India, Africa, and Asia. And there's also different types of mambo, Latin jazz, free improvisation, progressive metal, and many more. Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, they all improvised. But there's something special about jazz blues scale. And we will hear now theologian and cosmologist Reverend Barbara Holmes talk about jazz and improvisation and what does displacement, not only of notes, but of human beings, has to do with this genre.
Oh, yes. Jazz is a very American musical genre. It's music that expresses itself as being between a rock and a hard place, as we would say. It says through blue notes, things are a low down, dirty shame. Jazz is a musical version of the communal response to displacement. And that's not just a Black thing, because in North America, most of us are displaced immigrants, migrants. So there's something about improvisation in jazz that evokes a creativity. You know, it's about taking a little and making more out of it, starting with a few notes and blasting off into something completely cosmic. It's melodic innovation. Now, I have used John Coltrane as an example. I wrote an article called Christ, Coltrane, and the Jazz Sermon. And I did that because when you hear John Coltrane, you know that the notes that he's blowing come directly from another galaxy. You can hear the pain. You can hear the possibility. You can hear the neighborhood folks gossiping. You know, the straining trumpet in jazz blasts away the illusion that our upward mobility will bring us peace. Jazz helps us to perform joy when we least feel like it.
As a singer, Marina, what is so special about the creative rhythm behind jazz?
It's frightening at some point. I did a bit of it because you are just like, you have to jump in the cold water that you don't know what's going to happen. You are in the now and you are you have no time to think of what you just did, of what is happening next. It's pure present, and it's also inspiration, and it's also being super aware of what the others are doing. You have to have, like, I don't know, 5 brains at the same time. One that is focusing on the rhythm, one that is open to the chords that are played around, and then one that comes out of nowhere, and maybe that's the cosmic part, that will make you do something that you will never do twice, and that is just the result of all this and your own experience, your own creativity, your own state of mind at that moment. And it's very cosmic somehow. It's true. And it's, for an opera singer, it is so frightening because we have everything written. Sometimes in Baroque, for instance, with Handel, we have to rewrite a whole section that repeats itself, but still we have a base and we rewrite it. We don't improvise it completely. So to suddenly like be on a jazz club, on a jam session, and people are like, "Oh yeah, no, your moment, just improve something." That's scary, but it's at the same time so fulfilling, and yeah, I love it.
As a kid, listening to my grandmother playing the piano, I became kin of one of my favorite classical composers, Manuel M. Ponce, whose compositions for classical guitar I discovered later in life. The guitar is a very humble and at the same time noble instrument because its sounds are familiar and accessible to the listener. We were talking before about bridges between metal and classical music and then also about crossovers. And I immediately thought about the guitar and how it truly works as a bridge between the classical and the popular. I personally find the guitar to be a very romantic instrument. Marina, there is a wonderful online digital concert turned album named Porque Existe Otro Querer, which made me a fan of yours, in which you sing accompanied by the incredible classical guitar of Gabriel Bianco. Well, this repertoire is a real treat, as we heard with the song Nana before, and each of these musical pieces is a living proof of success in bringing the artist and the listener closer together. And so I thought we could hear another excerpt of this work. So now, dear listener, you're about to hear Historia de Amor by Carlos Eleta Almarán. Marina Viotti sings, and in the guitar is Gabriel Bianco. Please enjoy.
Ya no estás más a mi lado, corazón, y en el alma solo tengo soledad. Y si ya no puedo verte, porque Dios me hizo quererte, por hacerme sufrir más. Fuiste toda la razón de mi existir, adorarte para mí fue religión. Y en tus besos yo esperaba el calor que me brindaba, el amor y la pasión. Es la historia de un amor como no hay otro igual, que me hizo comprender todo el bien, todo el mal, que le dio luz a mi vida, apagándola después. Ay, qué vida tan oscura, sin tu amor no viviré.
Marina, tell us about this concert, its repertoire, and about your love for this generous, humble, and fantastic instrument.
Oh, it's one of my favorite instruments. And I always wanted to do a program with guitar because it allows the voice to be much more intimate, make more colors. And also I knew that guitar is one of the most popular instruments. It speaks to everyone. And it's also a nomade instrument, so you can bring it everywhere, which makes it easy to go to the people and not only wait that the people comes to you, as we do in most concert halls. And this project was born between Gabrielle and I during COVID, when the lockdown happened. We had some time finally, because he's a very famous soloist of guitar, and I have a lot of operas that takes a lot of time. So suddenly we are having time. So I wrote him, should we do this program? And now we have time. And so I sent him a list of songs I love. I always saw the guitar as an instrument for Spanish music because of flamenco, because I don't know, it fits, and the French songs as well. So I sent him a list of classical and popular songs from Spain and South America and France. And he arranged all of it. And he was filming himself playing like a playback. And then I could practice on it. And then I also thought, after, when it will be over, all this pandemic, it will be taking time until we can be inside with an audience. But the guitar can go outside. So we will have a possibility to go to an audience and to present this program. And that's actually exactly what happened. We got a lot of concerts, and also like private stuff for birthdays. And, we presented this program many, many times. And then we got the proposition to record the album with the label Aparté, which is the label I work with. And it was a bet for them because it's a very crossover program again. And I told them, I think this is the perfect program because, as you said, it speaks to everyone. And actually, we had reached 2 million streams, which is, for classical music, is quite good. For Beyonce, is nothing, of course, but for us, it's good. And that means it does speak to everyone. And we see it in the concerts we give. We have a very different audience, sometimes people who never go to a classical concert. But because it's the guitar and because it's popular songs, they come and then they discover on the way Defaya, Fauré, who are classical composers. And that was my aim, to open to a different kind of audience and to make them discover classical music through this way. So far it's a success for that, and I'm so happy about that.
Well, you did a fantastic job. I mean, this could have been the album of the year, the COVID 2020 album of the year. And I mean, if somebody giving the Grammys out is listening, you should hear this out, really. Building up a repertoire is by no means a trivial task. Emerging orchestral director Ewan Shields talked to us about the meaning of a repertoire. Let's listen.
Conductors are usually responsible for what pieces get played in concerts and in what order. And over the course of a concert or even a season, the conductors can take the audience members on a journey. And when I program, my goal is to make a particular concert an experience that's unrepeatable. The particular combinations of pieces that I choose tell a certain story that move the orchestra musicians and the audience in a unique way, such that that experience will be the first and last in their lives. So the search for concert programming ideas is one of my obsessions. And sometimes I have a hard time sleeping, but that's one of the great joys of being a conductor, is you're always learning new repertoire and you're being surprised by new connections between concepts and cultural artworks that you previously weren't aware of.
What are the things you look up to when you are in the process of creating a repertoire for your performances? And also, Marina, what would you say is the most difficult part of creating one by yourself or in partnership with somebody else?
That's my specialty, creating repertoire. I love it. I love to create programs. And I actually, even if I try to think about how it's going to be makeable for me as a singer to switch from this to that genre and language and style, actually, that's never my priority. My priority is how will it be perceived by the audience. So I always put myself in the shoes of the audience. And I think what do I want to experiment? So it's, for me, a program always have to be built up, to start strong, then have a moment of relax and emotions, and then go up again in something more energetic. And then it depends, do we want to finish on something fun and then the people go home with a smile, or on something touching and calm and then they are relaxed? It really depends on the story you want to tell. And I always want to tell a story. And so for me, I built the program according to the story I want to tell and how the audience will feel, that it's not too long, but that it's interesting enough, and also how I can stage it, because I love to stage, to put my musicians into characters too, that they are not just musicians, but they also are part of the story. And so, yeah, I have, I think, 4 or 5 different programs that I propose. And more, I get offers from festivals or from programmators. And they said, just, can you propose us something? This is the setting. This is the orchestra we have. What can you do? Do whatever. Like, they trust me on this. And that's very moving for me. And it's a big responsibility to do. So at the moment, I am building 2 new different programs, and it's a lot of work.
Talking about magical repertoires, I want to talk to you about Pauline Viardot Garcia, the grand opera diva of the last half of the 19th century, a woman with extraordinary charisma who belonged to the dynasty of opera singers known as Los Garcia, daughter of the famous Sevillian tenor and composer Manuel Garcia, and the younger sister of the no less famous singer Maria Malibran and baritone Manuel Jr. As a kid, Pauline Viardot traveled with his parents on the American tour that took them to the United States and Mexico. She studied piano with Franz Liszt and afterwards with his father until his death, and later with her mother, the singer and actress Joaquina Sitges, artistically known as Joaquina Briones. Marina, one could draw so many parallels with you. You recorded a fantastic repertoire of songs together with the ensemble Les Talents Lyriques and orchestral director and cembalist Christophe Rousset, called Tribute to Pauline Viardot. This fantastic repertoire is made of very expressive French songs and Italian songs, which sound, at least to me, technically very, very difficult to sing. Who is Pauline Viardot for you, and how was your experience recording this repertoire that, from a listener perspective, as I said, demands from the singer so many colors and so much flexibility in the voice?
It was super interesting to research about her. Actually, Christophe Rousset had proposed me to do an album about her, because he said, as you just said too, there are many similarities between you two. And so I started to research about her, and I found an incredible woman, not only as a singer. She had the particularity, singing-wise, to have a huge range, to be able to sing very low, but also very high, very lyrical, but also with a lot of spark and coloratura. And she was famous for being, on the emotion side, a very interesting actress as well. Her costume were made by Delacroix, and it's so interesting. And at the same time, she was the muse of so many composers and writers of that time: Victor Hugo, Musset, and then, of course, Berlioz, Saint-Saëns, all the biggest names of the Romanticism. She was holding those salons in Paris with her husband and her lover, Turgenev, the Russian writer, who built his own dacha in her garden. She was also a fantastic pianist. Clara Schumann said she was better than her, so that says a lot. And she was a composer. She composed a lot of operas, mainly to entertain all those figures that were coming to her salon. She would write those little operas and distribute the roles. For instance, Victor Hugo would have to be a character, and then also Wagner and Gounod and Berlioz. I would have loved to be there. Must have been incredible. And so, to pay a tribute to such a woman, to put her on the spotlights again, because obviously she's been completely put in the shadow I never heard of her before, though I did literature studies, which is incredible. So I was so happy to do that, but it was also a huge challenge because she had a huge range of versatility, and to record such different areas from different styles, languages, difficulties, each of them is difficult. It was a challenge, and I'm very happy that I managed to do it. And also was a very interesting journey with Christophe to see how we can honor this woman, not do something too bad, and also how we can nowadays make our version of those areas. Some of them are very famous, and make it our own. So I really grow through this album, and I got to speak about her a lot, and I'm very happy about that.
Well, you really brought her back to life, I can tell you. In stage, when performing, there is movement in the mind, and we talked about movement with hands and bodies and gestures, and singers and dancers, musicians. I mean, there's a lot of movement going on, but there's one movement which we give for granted and think that, like love, it is inherent to our human nature. And truth is, we can come to this earth to learn everything, even to love and to breathe correctly. And if you think about it, the relationship between singing and breathing could be also told as a love encounter. The path followed by the air we inhale that goes into our body, to our lungs, and how this oxygen moves to our bloodstream to then return to the lungs and depart as we exhale it. I mean, tell us about this relationship between breathing and singing, and has this love story felt natural to you? Have you struggled? And what has breathing correctly taught you about life in general?
That's for sure, that singing is all about breathing. If you cannot breathe properly, you cannot sing. And I learned the breathing through the flute. This is exactly why actually I played the flute, because at that time I wanted already to be an opera singer, but I was 8 years old. And my father said, wait a bit. And meantime, you can do the flute. It's going to teach you to breathe. And that was because it's a wind instrument. It actually helped me to learn how to breathe properly, and then how to use the stream of air, and where it starts and where it ends. And so after that, singing was easier, but I still kept improving the breathing. You can breathe in so many ways. You can breathe from your nose or from your mouth. You can breathe low in your perineum or with the higher ribs. And maybe it's both. Maybe it's just one. Maybe you have a corset on stage and then you cannot use your diaphragm, and then you have to use the higher ribs. So it's a constant work in progress. And I would say that's why I say singing is a meditation, because we use the same breathing technique as yoga, mostly. And that helps a lot to not feel too much the stress of being on stage sometimes, the pressure. We have to breathe so much when we sing that it helps relaxing at the same time, I think. And it's also a way to be grounded, but at the same time to elevate yourself, I think.
Continuing with breathing, and you were mentioning yoga now. In Qigong, there is the belief that the heart, the liver, the spleen, the lungs, and kidneys can be healed through breathing and singing. Specific vibrating sounds are sung to each organ to activate them individually in order to heal them. Bulgarian Qigong master Miroslav Petrov was generous enough to let us record him. We will hear 2 recordings, the first one for the sounds that makes the heart vibrate, and the second regarding the sounds that make the kidneys vibrate. So, Marina, is it true? Can singing heal us humans?
I think it does. I think it is a therapy for singing that exists, and it's proven for Alzheimer people and for many other mental diseases and memory problems. So I think when I teach, I teach a lot. I teach singing as well, and I don't teach only to professional singers, but also to older people. And I had an experience once where I had a workshop for bank employees that never sang, and I had like 6 bank employees coming to the opera, and they arrived straight after work, and you could see they were like tired, they were pale, they were making those faces, they were unhappy for sure and very stressed. And we just did half an hour breathing exercise, sound, and started to sing and do rhythm. And in half an hour, there were other people. They were shining from an inner light and they were so happy. And I thought, wow, there is really something so powerful about singing. And I don't know exactly where it comes from, but it was so obvious. And for them too, they were like so excited after that. And I thought, this is also why I love teaching this, because I see that it only does good to people. And it's a bit of an addiction, actually. When you start to sing, you really want to keep on singing. And I think also it heals the audience because it's still a catharsis effect.
The V for Viotti can easily be exchanged for virtuosi. And if beautiful could be written with a V, it could also be standing for that. And believe me when I say that when talking about the Viotti family, beautiful could indeed be written with a V. And to prove this, I have in front of me a beautiful group of pictures of the Viotti family, and anyone hearing us can Google them. And your mother, extremely elegant violinist, I believe.
Yes.
By her side is your father, the late colossal Maestro Marcello Viotti, and his 4 children, Milena and Alessandro, professional hornists, then Lorenzo, the celebrated orchestral conductor, and you, Marina, an extraordinary mezzo-soprano. It could be that since I know already who is standing in this picture, that I'm aware of the talent irradiating from these images. All that said, and besides the beauty and the strong personalities of each of its members, these photographs exude unity, generosity, charisma, and humanity. The type of humanity that is grounded and empathic. We know how musically talented each of the members of the dynasty is, of this dynasty, the Viotti dynasty, but I want you to please tell us about the virtues of the Viotti family in the sense of its unity, its strength, and love for each other.
So I think we got all of that through our parents. We were raised with love, a lot of love that was expressed, that was showed. I know that now I see with the distance that it's not something that is always happening in families. I thought that was the norm, but it's actually not. And we were also raised with a lot of. My parents always told us we could do anything as soon as we do it with passion and work, and they never told us to do music. We wanted to do it just because we wanted to. We did a lot of sport as well, but it was also very special because my father, who was a conductor, was working a lot, and my mom was a violinist. And after the 3rd kid, she said, okay, she will stop her career. But the deal was with my father that if he leaves more than 2 weeks, we come all together with him. So that's very unique. In actually, now that I do this job, I can see that it's not so common that a singer or a conductor comes with the whole family. First of all, because, well, it's an investment, but also because it's difficult to stay concentrated, and we need a lot of concentration in this job. And I'm like, wow, now I see my father, and in a different light. And I think how extraordinary. I think he needed this for his own balance and happiness. He was a family man, but it was also such a fantastic experience for us to travel around the world with them and to be always surrounded by music and art and all those people from different cultures speaking different languages. It gave us an open mind. And of course, when he died, we got even closer together with my brother, sister, and my mom. I think my mom is just one of the most extraordinary women I know. Because, we've been through phases, especially me. I was gothic, I had tattoos, I had piercings, had crazy looks. And she never judged. She never said anything. She understood I needed that. She bought my albums. She came to my metal concerts. Always so elegant. Everybody knew it was my mom. She was very famous in the metal world. And then, sometimes we would host some of the metal bands at home, and she would make breakfast and everybody was falling in love with my mom. She's such an incredible woman. And she gave us all those values. And now I think my family is everything for me. And I could not live without them. And so we just spent the whole summer visiting each other. I went 3 days to see my sister and her baby. And then Lorenzo and I, we bought actually a flat together. So we kind of live together, even if we never really meet. But, we try to see each other as much as we can. We have a WhatsApp group, of course. We share our experiences in the music, in the life. We call each other. They are my rocks. And I'm so lucky, actually, to have such a family.
In regards of communication between the author of a song or the composition of a musical composition and the performer of that composition, celebrated poet and president emerita of Penn International, Jennifer Clement, who, by the way, is an opera enthusiast and is also already a follower of you because of this wonderful album of yours, Porque Existe Otro Querer, left a question for you. Let's hear.
Dear Marina, is there a composer you feel a unique affinity to, as if the works were created specifically for your voice?
There are few. Not only because I think it fits my voice, but I think it's also because I was really kind of born into them. Like, I heard them so many times in my childhood. And this is Rossini. I sing a lot of Rossini because I heard so much Rossini, and it's kind of part of my DNA. And then, as a affinity, I really, really love Poulenc, Francis Poulenc, especially his opera Les Dialogues des Carmélites, which is also a book from Bernanos, and also other piece, La Voix Humaine. There's something in this music that is very close to Edith Piaf somehow, and chanson, and that puts the text as a priority, and that's almost as much as an acting music than a singing music. And that's why I feel very close to this composer, and also the texts are incredibly beautiful, and characters and everything. So yeah, Poulenc is a language that doesn't speak to anyone, actually, to everyone. But you love it or you don't. But I really love it.
Marina, you were talking about this family chat and this wonderful summer you spent together. And I'm curious, if you were to compose an opera and taking into account this chat and how you interact among each other in the Viotti family, what would the opera be about?
Oh, well, for sure, if I would compose, and I'm terrible at it, so it will never happen, but if I would compose an opera, I would put everybody of my family in it, and I would put all of my friends on stage, which means not only opera singer friends, but also dancer friends, rock singer friends. I would definitely create an opera that brings together many forms of arts, many different styles and genres, and I would involve as many people as I love as possible. That's for sure. And the subject is yet to be discovered, because there are so many subjects that are very important today in our society. The search for meaning, And also so many figures like Pauline Viardot, for instance, that would deserve to be in the front stage. And yeah, many books I read that I really liked. I love Pat Conroy. I think he's American, and several books he wrote, and also Tom Wolfe, for instance. It should be an opera that makes you think and that makes you grow, for sure.
In these photographs we were talking about before, you all look very athletic. So let's talk about sports. How do you get in shape, and how does physical movement connect with singing?
I think together today, opera singers are athletes. We have to do so much more than in the past 20 years. We have now to sometimes do circus on stage, to climb things, to dance, to sing upside down. Like it's become a sport on its own. And also the rhythm we have, my lifestyle, always going from one place to another, the tiredness and the stress, all of this need, in my opinion, a workout and some sport, because we need to release all the stress and also be as possibly in shape as possible, like also the endurance, the breathing, because at the moment, like every other things in our world today, it's a lot about your image. So you have also to look good. Doesn't mean you have to be a mannequin, but you have to feel good because you have to present yourself and sell yourself somehow. So for all those reasons, I do a lot of sport, but it's also because I have so much energy. I need to spread it somehow. And so it can be, for me, it's paddle tennis, I love surfing, snowboarding, and I do work out. And now in this production, I do Cenerentola. I have two colleagues that also work out a lot. So we go all together, and we have a special workout for singers because you cannot work out the abdominal so much because you need a flexibility there to breathe and to sing. So it's very specific. But it's true that after workout, we sing better because the body is warmed up, the breathing is there, we are energetic, and then we are fit for the stage. Sometimes I don't even have to warm up my voice because my body is warmed up enough. And cardio, of course, is important for the breathing, for making long lines. So I think it's super necessary. And the new generation is already very different from the ones 20 years ago about that.
Marina, through the whole interview, I've noticed that you have a great sense of humor. And I want to ask you, because humor for me is very important, why do you think humor is so essential when moving through life? And what has humor taught you in the world of classical music?
Oh, it saved me from so many situations. What I noticed is that humor is cultural. That I see because in the opera, I'm singing with singers from all around the world. And very often the French humor is not understood by everyone, for instance. So there are some awkward moments. Or I don't know, the German humor, if it exists. But it's a special humor. And then a British one might not understand it. So there's also a type of humor that speaks to people or can be offensive for others. So it's something you have to be careful about. But in many situations where tension is rising or stress is very high, humor is de-dramatizing everything and brings everything back to good mood. People are smiling, and I think it's so important for me to see life with a bit of humor, because if not, sometimes life can be tough. So it's a life savior, and it's very helpful in social skills as well, and on this work that is sometimes very stressful.
Among the many recognitions you have received in 2019, you were awarded the Best Young Singer of the Year at the prestigious International Opera Awards in London. This is huge. So many young people starting their opera singing career look up to you. My last question would be, what would be the most important advice you've received from someone else that has helped you through your career and that you would like to pass on to younger generations?
You always have your inner voice that will tell you if it is the right choice or not, if it is a risk worth taking, why. Sing with your own voice. Be the artist you want to be. There is not only the boxes we know, there are many to be created yet. And more in this century, we have to go further.
Well, with your voice, you make people dream. And you made life so much beautiful. Thank you, Marina, for shaking up the opera classical world without injuring its sacrality. You really make classical music feel alive. And thank you for your time and for an exquisite, vibrating, and passionate interview. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for a very, very interesting exchange that made me think and that I love.
Thank you to our listeners, wherever you are, for having allowed us to share time with you. To follow Marina's steps, concerts, and recordings, please check this episode's description or visit her Instagram, Marina Viotti Mezzo, Viotti with double T, as well as the word mezzo with double C. Her music is available all over the internet, in Spotify, YouTube, and all sorts of digital platforms. And we will now say goodbye with this angelical, beautiful voice of hers and Historia de Amor, accompanied by the amazing guitar of Gabriel Bianco. Enjoy, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
El calor que me brindaba, el amor y la pasión. Es la historia de un amor como no hay otro igual, que me hizo comprender todo el bien, todo el mal, que le dio luz a mi vida, apagándola después. Ay, qué vida tan oscura.